August 17, 2018. 2:34 in the morning. Vernon Dutton, 67 years old, wins $163,400 on a Wheel of Fortune slot machine at Firekeepers Casino in Battle Creek, Michigan. He walks out alone at 4:12. Security cameras film him entering the parking lot, Sector D, space 247. No camera ever captures him leaving. 3 days later, his truck sits abandoned at a rest area 18 miles away. Keys in the ignition, door unlocked, and in the glove box, a black duffel bag containing $142,000 in sealed casino bills. 5 years later, the FBI discovers the truth. It wasn't about money. It was about something his wife Charlene had hidden for 40 years. Something worth more than any jackpot. Vernon's life before that night looked simple. 33 years at General Motors, pension of $2,840 a month. A modest house in Battle Creek worth $127,000, paid off. He'd visit the casino twice a month, spend $50 to $80, drive home. A hobby, nothing more. He was married to Charlene for 38 years. They had one son, Garrett, 39, who sold insurance in Indiana. 2 grandkids, Tyler, 9, Madison, 6. Vernon's health had been good until May of 2018 when a stroke hit him at breakfast. Not severe. The left side of his body weakened, movement slower, but recovery looked promising. Charlene couldn't handle the physical therapy alone, so they hired help. Brenda Morrison arrived 2 weeks after the stroke. 41 years old, certified nurse, 12 years of experience, references that checked out perfectly. She came 4 times a week, 6 hours a day. Helped Vernon with exercises, medications, kept him company. Insurance covered most of it. $528 weekly at $22 an hour. Charlene liked her immediately. Vernon seemed comfortable around her. But there was something Charlene noticed early on. Brenda would offer to take Vernon out, get him some air, drive him around town. Charlene always said no. She didn't need to explain why. Just a feeling. Vernon never pushed back. Until August 17th. Charlene was out of town that weekend, a cousin's wedding in Lansing. Vernon called Brenda on Friday night. Asked if she'd take him to the casino. Just once. Just this one time. Brenda hesitated, then said yes. They arrived at Firekeepers at 11:15 that Saturday night. Vernon moved slowly through the casino floor, leaning on his cane, Brenda walking beside him. He chose a machine near the back. Wheel of Fortune, $5 spins. Brenda sat next to him, watching. By 2 in the morning, Vernon had lost $60. He stood up, stretched his back, told Brenda he was ready to go. She nodded, grabbed her purse. Vernon fed the machine one last time. $5. The wheels spun, lights flashed, bells rang. $163,400. Vernon's hands shook. He cried. Brenda hugged him. Dwayne, the casino manager, came over, smiling wide, shaking Vernon's hand. Vernon signed paperwork. They loaded the cash into a black duffel bag. Brenda walked him toward the exit, but Vernon stopped, said he needed to grab something from the truck. Told her to wait inside. He'd be right back. She watched him walk toward the parking lot at 4:12. He never came back. Brenda waited inside the casino entrance for 15 minutes, checked her phone, looked out toward the parking lot. Nothing. At 4:22 in the morning, she walked to the security desk and told them Vernon hadn't come back. 2 guards followed her outside. They found his parking spot. Sector D, space 247. The silver Ford F-150, 2009 model, license plate MKX8834, sat exactly where they'd left it hours earlier. But Vernon was gone. The guards called over their radios. More security arrived. They searched the lot, the casino floor, the bathrooms, the restaurant that had closed at midnight. At 4:40, they called the Battle Creek Police Department. Officers arrived within 12 minutes, took Brenda's statement, reviewed security footage. 47 cameras covered that parking structure. Every angle, every exit, every stairwell. The footage showed Vernon walking into Sector D at 4:12, duffel bag in his right hand, cane in his left. He moved slowly, favoring his weak side, heading toward his truck. Then nothing. No footage of him leaving. No footage of him getting into any vehicle. No footage of him walking toward the highway. He entered the lot and vanished. The police expanded the search at dawn. K9 units, helicopters, volunteers combing the woods behind the casino. Charlene drove back from Lansing in a panic when Garrett called her at 6 in the morning. She arrived at the casino at 8:30, eyes swollen, hands shaking. Brenda was still there, sitting in the security office, answering the same questions over and over. He said he'd be right back. He just wanted to get something from the truck. I waited. I swear I waited. The police let her go home at 6:45. Her timeline checked out. Cameras confirmed every word. She had no reason to lie. No history with Vernon beyond being his caregiver. No motive anyone could see. But 3 days later, on August 20th, a highway patrol officer found Vernon's truck at a rest area on Interstate 94, 18 miles east of the casino. The keys were in the ignition. The door was unlocked. Vernon's wallet sat on the passenger seat. His phone. His medication bottles, the ones he needed to take every morning to keep his blood pressure stable. And in the glove box, inside a black duffel bag, $142,000, in neat stacks of $100 bills, still sealed with the casino's paper bands. $21,400 were missing. Forensics found no fingerprints except Vernon's. No signs of struggle, no blood, no scratches on the door handles or dashboard. The rest area's security camera had been broken for 4 days, waiting on maintenance the county kept delaying. The location made no sense. Vernon had left the casino with Brenda. She drove. He didn't have his truck that night. So how did his truck end up 18 miles away with most of his money still inside? The police questioned Brenda again. She repeated the same story. I don't know. I drove him to the casino in my car. His truck was at home. I have no idea how it got there. They checked her vehicle. A Nissan Sentra, 2012, nothing suspicious. They checked her phone records. Nothing unusual. They checked her bank account. $1,200. Same as always. Garrett hired a private investigator in September, spent $8,500 over 3 months chasing leads that went nowhere. Charlene couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. Blood pressure spiked so high she spent 2 days in the hospital. Brenda kept working with other patients, visited Charlene twice a week, brought groceries, stayed for tea. Dwayne, the casino manager, mentioned something to detectives in passing. Vernon had asked about international wire transfers that night while signing the jackpot paperwork. Asked if the casino could send money overseas. Dwayne thought it was strange, but didn't push. He seemed nervous, Dwayne said, like he had somewhere to be. The FBI took over the case in October. Possible kidnapping, possible flight across state lines, amount large enough to justify federal resources. They started from scratch. The FBI dug deeper than local police ever could. They started with Vernon's finances, pulling every bank statement, every credit card transaction, every deposit and withdrawal going back 5 years. What they found in the first week changed everything. Vernon had a gambling problem nobody knew about. Not the casual casino visits twice a month. Something darker. Online poker. Sites operating in gray legal zones, offshore servers, anonymous payments. Between 2015 and 2018, Vernon had lost $47,800. The money came from his pension, from selling tools and equipment he'd collected over decades at GM. From small withdrawals Charlene never questioned because she trusted him. The poker sites kept records. Vernon's account showed thousands of hands played, most of them losses, desperate attempts to win back what he'd already lost. And then the email started. Threats. You have 72 hours. We know where your family lives. The messages came from encrypted addresses, impossible to trace, but the language was clear. Pay or consequences. Vernon had deleted every one. The FBI recovered them from his hard drive. But when agents tracked down the operation behind those threats, they discovered it had been shut down 2 weeks before Vernon disappeared. Federal raid in New Jersey. 14 arrests. Servers seized. Operation dismantled. The timeline didn't work. Whoever had threatened Vernon couldn't have taken him. They were already in custody. Theory 1 collapsed. The FBI moved to Theory 2. Maybe Vernon wasn't taken. Maybe he ran. Agents found a bank account Vernon had opened 3 months before the disappearance. TD Bank in Vermont. $12,300 deposited in 4 installments between May and July of 2018. Small amounts, $3,000 here, $2,800 there. Money pulled from his pension, from selling things Charlene didn't notice were gone. His passport had been renewed in June, 6 years before it would have expired. Google searches on his laptop painted a picture. How to disappear legally. Countries without extradition. Living on $150,000 abroad. The searches were methodical, researched, planned. Vernon had been thinking about this for months, but the evidence against Theory 2 was stronger than the evidence for it. Vernon's medication. The bottles found in his truck were critical. He needed them every day. High blood pressure, controlled only by those pills. Without them, a doctor told the FBI, Vernon would be at severe risk of another stroke within 72 hours. A fatal one. The account in Vermont hadn't been touched since August 17th. No withdrawals, no transfers, nothing. His passport hadn't been used. No records at any airport, any border crossing, any international transaction. If Vernon had planned to disappear, he'd planned to die doing it. If he ran, the lead agent said during a briefing in November, he didn't make it far. He's dead. No question. Garrett sat in on that meeting. Heard those words. Went home and couldn't stop thinking about them. His father, dead in a ditch somewhere, or buried in woods nobody had searched yet, or at the bottom of a lake. Charlene refused to believe it. He's alive, she kept saying. I'd know if he wasn't. I'd feel it. The FBI shifted focus in late October. If Vernon didn't run and wasn't taken by the people who threatened him, then someone else was involved, someone close. Someone who had opportunity. Brenda Morrison became the center of the investigation. Agents pulled her entire life apart. Born Brenda K. Morrison in Flint, Michigan. Divorced in 2013 after 8 years of marriage. One daughter, Kaylee, 16 years old. Personal bankruptcy filed in 2015. $32,400 in credit card debt discharged. Her bank account averaged $1,200 most months. She worked steady, paid her rent on time, had no criminal record, no history of violence or theft. But then the FBI found something. August 21, 2018. 4 days after Vernon disappeared. A deposit of $8,000 into Brenda's checking account. When questioned, Brenda said it was from selling jewelry she'd inherited from her mother. The FBI checked. Her mother had died in 2016. The estate inventory listed no jewelry of significant value. Brenda changed her story. I meant my grandmother, not my mother. I got confused. The agents didn't buy it. Then, in November, Brenda bought a car. A Nissan Altima, 2017 model, $18,500. Paid in cash. Full amount. When asked where the money came from, she said she'd been saving and had sold the jewelry. Her old Sentra had broken down, needed a new transmission that cost more than the car was worth. The explanation sounded reasonable until agents reviewed her phone records. 14 calls between Vernon and Brenda in the 3 days before he disappeared. August 15th through 17th. Some lasting 2 minutes, others 10. One lasting 11 minutes on the evening of the 17th, just hours before they left for the casino. Charlene hadn't known about any of those calls. Vernon never mentioned them. Neither did Brenda. When confronted, Brenda said they were coordinating the casino trip. He wanted to make sure I could drive him. We talked about timing, about when Charlene would be gone, about keeping it quiet so she wouldn't worry. The FBI brought her in for questioning 3 more times between October and December. Each time, her story stayed the same. Calm, consistent, no cracks. By January of 2019, the case had gone cold. The FBI reduced the team assigned to it. Brenda continued her life, working as a caregiver, visiting Charlene occasionally, always polite, always helpful. The media lost interest. Garrett stopped searching. He had to. The private investigator bills had drained his savings, and his wife was asking questions he couldn't answer. Charlene sold some furniture, downsized her life, learned to live with the empty space Vernon had left behind. She kept his clothes in the closet, kept his coffee mug on the counter, kept hoping. 5 years passed like that. Quiet, unresolved. Until August 17th, 2023. Exactly 5 years to the day after Vernon disappeared. Garrett received an anonymous email. No name, no subject line, just an address. 4847 Lakeshore Drive, Traverse City, Michigan. And a single sentence. Ask who bought this. Garrett looked up the address online. A mansion. 4 bedrooms, 3,200 square feet, sitting on a bluff overlooking Lake Michigan. The listing photos showed granite countertops, hardwood floors, a deck that stretched the width of the house. The property had sold 3 weeks earlier for $485,000. Garrett clicked through public records. Found the buyer's name. Brenda K. Morrison. He stared at the screen for 10 minutes. Read the name again. Checked the sale date. July 12, 2023. Checked the purchase details. $120,000 down payment. Financing for the remaining $365,000. He called the FBI the next morning. Agent Morgan Reeves, the lead investigator who'd taken over the case in 2019, answered on the second ring. Garrett told her about the mansion, about the down payment, about the timeline. Reeves didn't hesitate. I'll get a warrant. The financial investigation took 3 weeks. When the results came back, they were worse than anyone expected. Between August of 2018 and July of 2023, Brenda had received $287,600 in irregular deposits. The money came in monthly, sometimes twice a month, always in cash deposited at ATMs across Michigan. $4,200 here, $5,800 there, never the same amount, never a pattern the system would flag automatically. Brenda had reported the income on her taxes as extra caregiving work, freelance patients, private clients. The FBI contacted every name she'd listed. 60% of them didn't exist. Phone numbers disconnected or fake. Addresses that led to empty lots or businesses that had closed years earlier. The other 40% had hired Brenda for legitimate work, but the amounts didn't match. She'd claimed $6,000 from a woman in Grand Rapids who'd only paid her $1,200. She'd claimed $8,000 from a man in Lansing who said he'd never met her. Agent Reeves brought Brenda in on September 14th. No arrest, just questions, but the tone had changed. This wasn't a cooperative witness anymore. This was a suspect. Brenda sat across from Reeves in the interrogation room for 4 hours before she finally broke. "Vernon's alive," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's been paying me to stay quiet." Reeves leaned forward. "Where is he?" Brenda shook her head. "I don't know exactly. He sends me postcards. No return address. Different states. He told me not to look for him. Told me if I kept quiet, he'd send $5,000 a month for 5 years. That's it. That's all I know." She pulled out a stack of postcards from her purse. 23 of them. Postmarked from Arizona, Montana, Oregon, Nevada, Colorado. Generic images. Mountains, deserts, coastlines. No handwriting except her address on the front. Reeves studied them. "Why would Vernon pay you $250,000 to stay quiet?" Brenda looked down at her hands. "Because he found out something. About Charlene. Something he couldn't live with." The FBI brought Charlene in 2 weeks later. October 4th, 2023. Garrett insisted on being there. He sat next to his mother in the same interrogation room where Brenda had confessed, watching her face as Agent Reeves laid out the evidence. The postcards, the money. Vernon's plan. Charlene listened without speaking until Reeves asked the question directly. "What did Vernon find out, Charlene? What made him disappear?" Charlene's hands started shaking. She folded them in her lap, pressed them together, tried to steady herself. Then she said it. "Garrett isn't Vernon's biological son." The room went silent. Garrett felt his chest tighten, felt the air leave his lungs. Reeves waited. Charlene kept talking, her voice flat, empty of emotion. "I had an affair in 1984 with a man named Ray Sullivan. He was Vernon's supervisor at GM. It lasted 6 months. I got pregnant. I didn't tell anyone. I told Vernon the baby was his. He never questioned it, never doubted. For 39 years, he believed Garrett was his son." Garrett couldn't speak, couldn't move. Reeves asked the next question. "When did Vernon find out?" Charlene wiped her eyes. "May of 2018. Garrett needed surgery. They ran blood work, genetic screening. Vernon saw the results, knew it wasn't possible. He confronted me. I admitted everything." Reeves wrote something in her notebook. "That's not enough to make a man disappear. What else?" Charlene hesitated. Looked at Garrett. Looked away. "Ray Sullivan died in 2016. He left a will. Left money to his biological children, including ones he'd never acknowledged publicly. The will mentioned Garrett by name. $890,000. Vernon found the paperwork hidden in my closet 3 days before he went to the casino. I'd known about it for 2 years. Never told Garrett. Never planned to." Garrett stood up so fast his chair fell backward. "You stole almost $1 million from me?" Charlene didn't answer. Reeves kept writing. "So Vernon found out you'd lied about paternity and hidden a massive inheritance. Then what?" Charlene's voice cracked. "He said he was done. Said he'd spent his whole life building a family based on lies. Said he'd rather disappear than spend one more day pretending." Agent Reeves leaned back in her chair, asked the question that had been sitting in the room since the beginning. "The casino jackpot. Was it real?" Charlene shook her head slowly. "Vernon told me later, in a letter I received a year after he left. He didn't win anything. He paid the casino manager $3,000 to fake the jackpot on the security cameras. The money in the truck, the $142,000, that was his. Savings from 10 years of side jobs, investments, selling things I never noticed were gone. He staged the whole thing. Made it look like he'd come into money so I'd think he ran off with it. He wanted me to live with the guilt. Wanted me to believe he'd chosen money over family. But the truth was worse. He chose nothing over lies." The FBI analyzed every postcard Brenda had received. 23 cards over 5 years, postmarked from 7 different states, all purchased from the same chain. Walgreens. The forensic team pulled surveillance footage from locations matching the postmark dates, focused on Oregon, where 3 of the most recent cards had originated. Agents spotted a pattern. An older man, 70 or older, always wearing a baseball cap and dark sunglasses, buying single postcards with cash. Never the same Walgreens twice. Never staying long enough to draw attention. But in 2 of the videos, the man's gait matched Vernon's. The slight drag of the left foot. The way he favored his right side. On November 22, 2023, federal agents knocked on the door of a small apartment in Seaside, Oregon. A man answered. Walter Green, according to the lease he'd signed 2 years earlier. But his face belonged to Vernon Dutton. He didn't run, didn't resist. Just nodded slowly when the lead agent said his name. That man died 5 years ago, Vernon said quietly. The agent shook his head. Your wife and son want answers. Vernon looked past him, out toward the ocean visible from the apartment's single window. They had 40 years to give me answers. Garrett flew to Oregon 3 days later. The FBI allowed a supervised meeting in a conference room at the Seaside Police Department. Father and son sat across from each other at a metal table, neither speaking for the first 2 minutes. Garrett finally broke the silence. You abandoned us over a secret? Vernon's jaw tightened. Abandoned? I built that family for 38 years, paid every bill, every Christmas, every birthday, every graduation. Then I found out none of it was real. Garrett leaned forward. I'm your son, blood or not. Vernon shook his head. You're her son. You're the product of her lie. Of her choice to pick security over truth. Garrett's voice rose. And you chose revenge over family? Vernon didn't answer right away. He reached into a folder the FBI had returned to him, pulled out pages torn from a journal. Charlene's handwriting. Dated 1984. Garrett recognized it immediately. His mother's looping cursive, the way she dotted her eyes with little circles. Vernon slid the pages across the table. Read it. Garrett read. The entry described the affair with Ray Sullivan. Described the moment Charlene realized she was pregnant. Described her decision. Ray wants me to leave Vernon. Says he'll take care of us. But Ray's just a supervisor. Vernon has the stable job, the benefits, the pension locked in. Ray could lose everything in the next layoff. I can't risk it. I'll tell Vernon the baby is his. He'll never know. Garrett set the pages down. Felt something inside him crack. She chose financial security over honesty. Vernon nodded. And when Ray died and left you $890,000, she chose to keep that too. For 2 years she knew. She had the paperwork. She could have told you. Given you what was yours. Instead, she hid it. Because if you knew, you'd ask questions. You'd find out about Ray, about the affair, about everything. Garrett stared at the table. So you disappeared to punish her. Vernon's voice softened. I disappeared because I couldn't look at either of you anymore without seeing the lie, without feeling like my entire life had been someone else's script. The legal consequences came slowly. Brenda was charged with obstruction of justice and financial fraud. She'd knowingly accepted money from a man the authorities were searching for, never reported it, used it to purchase property. Her lawyer negotiated an agreement. 18 months probation. Restitution of $287,600. Forfeiture of the Traverse City mansion. In exchange, no jail time. She believed she was helping someone escape emotional abuse, her defense argued. The prosecutor didn't push harder. Vernon faced a $15,000 fine for conspiracy to commit fraud related to the fake casino jackpot. Dwayne, the casino manager, received the same. Vernon paid it without complaint. Technically, disappearing isn't illegal. A person can walk away from their life if they choose. No law against it. Charlene faced no criminal charges. Lying to a spouse isn't a crime. Hiding a will isn't a crime unless you're the executor. She wasn't. Garrett stopped speaking to her for 8 months. Wouldn't return her calls. Wouldn't visit. Charlene sold the house in Battle Creek in March of 2024, moved to Ohio to live near her sister. Vernon stayed in Oregon. Told the FBI he had no intention of returning to Michigan. Ever. Garrett visited Vernon a second time in March of 2024. No FBI this time. Just the two of them walking along the beach in Seaside. They talked for 6 hours. Vernon said he never meant to hurt Garrett. Only Charlene. Garrett said Vernon had hurt them both. They didn't reconcile, but they didn't part as strangers either. Something in between. On the drive back to his hotel, Garrett's lawyer called. There was something in Ray Sullivan's will Garrett needed to know. The $890,000 had a deadline, a clause buried in the legal language. The inheritance had to be claimed by December 31st, 2023. If not claimed by that date, the money would revert to Ray's estate and be distributed to his other heirs. Garrett had learned about the will in December of 2023, while searching for Vernon. While trying to untangle his mother's lies, he'd missed the deadline by 15 days. In January of 2025, Garrett filed a lawsuit against Charlene, wrongful concealment of inheritance. He's seeking $890,000 plus interest, $1.2 million total. The first hearing is scheduled for April of 2025. Charlene hired a lawyer. Vernon has been subpoenaed as a witness. Sometimes the money doesn't disappear with the people. Sometimes the people disappear because of money they never had the chance to keep.